Welcome to our YouTube channel, Code by Rack, where we bring you exciting and informative tutorials to enhance your Python skills. Today, we have a fantastic tutorial in store for you. You will be learning how to create a Python script that populates data from a web API and then sends an email to the users using the data obtained from the web API. Please note, whether you are a beginner, developer, or anyone who may not have any experience with this kind of code, this tutorial is designed for you. Our mission is to provide exciting and informative content to enhance your Python script. My name is Rabika Hale and I am a team leader for software and web developer, and I will show you the tutorial now. So let's dive right in. Hello again. For the environment setup, we have two different options for executing the Python script. The first method involves downloading Python to your local machine through the website of Python. It's www.python.org, and installing it. Then you can use Visual Studio Code. Of course, you have to download it from Microsoft product, which is one of the most popular code editors to work with the script comfortably. Alternatively, you have a second and easier approach you can use. It's Google Colab, a free sandbox execution environment provided by Google. With Colab, you can directly execute your Python code without worrying about installing the main libraries, as they are already available in the Colab environment. This allows you to get started quickly and focus on coding without any additional setup. So first, let's start to importing some libraries like requests and CSV and SMTP related to send an email. Starting to create the first function, which is get data from a web API. Of course, this is a command just to make sure that we have a standard practice code which let's say populate a definition for each function. So let's start def get data from web API. So this line signifies the definition of the function get data from the web API and take a single parameter which represents the URL of the web API. Now we start with the try block. This keyword initiate a try blocks, indicating that the code within it might raise an exception. So the response is equal request.get web API URL. This line used the request library to send an HTTP request to the specified URL and store the response in the response variable, which you are seeing now. The response raise for status is to handle any exception occurred during this manipulation or the population of data. So maybe error will be 4xx or 5xx means that an exception is raised or the code will be run successfully. And I mentioned here. Another example, when you have to populate the data, so we declare a variable data equal response.json, assuming that the web API returns data, and this line pairs the response content into a Python data structure, and the parsed data is stored in this variable data. And I will make some comments to make sure that you are understanding well. The return data.get is about to mention the array. Here example is products, the array that will I consume, and another one is empty. So product is populated from the JSON data, and if the product is not present in the data, it returns an empty list as a default value as you see now. This ensures that the function always returns a list either product with variables, or either it's an empty list. So now we will switch to the exception where we write except in the code. So try except, and the except we mention request dot exceptions, okay, dot request exceptions as e. So if an exception occurs during the HTTP request, network issue, invalid URL, server error, the code inside this block will be executed. In this case, I will show you that I have to print error occurred, and I will send the exception, which is E. Then we return, of course, an empty array because there is an exception. Now we'll start with the second function, which it's about to saving data into CSV file. So this function is responsible to take two parameters, save data, two parameter data, and CSV file name. The data parameter represents the list of dictionary containing the data to be saved, and CSV file name is the name of CSV file to which the data will be written. So we start with try statement as usual, the keyword, as you know, try a block to indicating if the code make an exception, with an open CSV file name, W new line. This line uses a context manager with to open a specify CSV statement, and W it's for writing mode, and new line for no additional character are inserted. Then field names equal data 0 dot keys. The code extracts the keys of the first dictionary in the data. This assumes that all dictionary in the list have the same keys, which is often the case when dealing with tabular data. So we still have, let's say, product or have users as a root, let's say, in a JSON format. So the writer is about to use a dict writer object to create and to write the data to CSV file. The dict writer class allows us to write dictionaries as rows with the key corresponding to the file name. Writer to write header is only for writing the header row, the field names to the CSV files. And next, write rows to use to write all the rows dictionaries of data in CSV file. So it's a populate directly in one shot in the CSV file. Now we have to make sure that the data is successfully imported. So I said print data successfully. Now we will have to make the except to handle any exception when writing to the CSV. As we previously did, we declare NE as exception, and we printed in case any exception happens when we are saving or writing the data from the web URL to the CSV file. Now we will start to the next function, which is read the CSV. So we have to declare a definition for read a CSV data, which accept a parameter CSV file name. So now I make some comment for all the developers to know what's happening next in the next lines of code. Okay, now I make some enter just to enlarge the screen. Okay, let's start def read CSV data. Okay, and with CSV name. So this line to declare the function, as I said, with a single parameter. Then I will set data equal empty. An empty list is initialized. This list stores the dictionary read from the CSV file. Then I will start, as you know, try to handle any exception with open CSV file name R using a constant manager with statement. The code opens the specified CSV file name in read mode R. The file is open for reading, allowing us to retrieve the data from it. Then, CSV file, yes. Then, reader equal csv.dict reader CSV file. So it's an object is created to read CSV file. It interrupts the first row of the file as a header row, and each subsequent row as a dictionary with keys corresponding to the file names. Next, for row in header to loop for all the data, and then we can Data.append row, it means that add a new row once we have entered, and we return the data after reading all the CSV file, and the list will be populated. For sure, we have to make the exception. As always, we print the exception, and always remember that you have to empty the list, especially for the product list, and we have to make it return empty list in case of any exception. Return for any exception. And now we will have to start developing the new method or function for Python. It's for sending in emails. So now we have the first function. It's about the populating from WebAPI, get the response. Then we have the writing to CSV file, and before that we're writing the read function that read all the CSV file, all the rows from CSV file. Now we are implementing send email function, which usually get a parameter. Since you know where you are sending an email, you have to set the subject, the body, the to, and of course the from. So now I'm setting to email, and then start. Okay, we'll start to retry as usual to catch any exception, or to have maybe some related issue or network issue when sending an email, or if the sender is not correct, sender email is not correct, or the receiver email is not correct also, we have to handle it and make a friendly message to the user, or if we have any SMTP settings which is not true. So now I will set the SMTP server. Actually, I used the Google SMTP server. So it's about smtp.gmail.com in my case. In your case, maybe you have another SMTP server. You will have to pull it here, but take care for the configuration. For the Google, all the configuration are the same, smtp.gmail.com. The SMTP port will be 587. Sender email, I am letting my email here, trustedman@gmail.com. And the most important is the password. So here in sender email, you can use, of course, your email, no problem. But here is the main important. Send password is not the password of trustedman@gmail.com, because this is not related to the email. This is related to the app. I already created an app on Google in the settings, not I'm creating an app. On settings, we go to the app passwords and you generate a new password. Once you generate the new password, you put it in the send password. So this password again is not related to trustedman@gmail.com. It's not related to your email. It's related only to the app password you created on Google. Maybe I can also show you after a while how to do that. So remember this trick. Okay, it's about security from Google. So it's about to make more security on Google, so you don't have to use your password. You use an app password. Now I have, as usual, use a try block to make an exception. Start message an instance for my multipart, and I set message from. I will set equal because I have it to email. So sender email. Then I have message to, which is the to email. Sender email in the from section is trustedman@gmail.com, and message to email, which will be retrieved, will be populated later. And of course, you will have also the subject, and you can attach the MIME parts here. We set the body and with the plain text, which is not HTML. Then in the next, we will have to use a context manager smtplib.smtp, and we have to provide the SMTP server and the SMTP port as a parameter, of course. It's a parameter already predefined in the function. Then we have to make server.start TLS, which is a method to call to enable a secure connection. Use a transport layer security TLS or secure socket layer. It depends. Google now use TLS, transport layer security. It ensures the email communication remains encrypted. So server.login then to authenticate with the SMTP server, of course, we have to send the email address. So now we will send the parameter sender email and sender password. Sender email is the email you are setting before, but remember sender password is the app password. And then you can server to send to in order to send message. So the email will be sent using the previously established connection to the SMTP server. And as we previously did, we make a printf, let's say email sent successfully, to make sure that the code indicating it is success running, and we'll specify the to email in order to receive the email, and the accept in case we have any other exception. We will have it in case there is a exception in the connection, or exception, let's say error exception in the connection or network. So we will have to make it. So this code is essential in the Python script because here it will send the email retrieved from the CSV file from the previous scripts. So now we will have to write the main Python script or main Python component or function that will handle all the function or methods that we already written. So in this function, we will have to make the condition if underscore underscore name equal underscore underscore equal main. Then we start with the first variable is API URL, which is the web link of the JSON format. So let's say I am using now, as you see now, HTTPS dummy.json.code, dummy.json. Yes, I am highlighting here WebAPI URL. Yes, so it's called WebAPI URL, dummy.json.com/project. If you browse this URL, you can see it's a dummy data. Of course, you can see all the JSON data. I have it, and you can use it or recreate another one. Now we will start to make the HTTP request to the web API and retrieve data by defining API data equal. We are calling get data from web API, and we will set as parameter web API URL, which is dummy.json.com/product. And it's highlighted here. Next, we will have to save the data to CSV if the API data has data. So we write if API underscore data, then we click on save underscore data underscore to underscore CSV, and we have to pass two parameters. The first parameter is the API data, which is the data retrieved from the JSON from the web URL, and second one is the generated CSV file, which will be in this case output.csv. So now we have, after this function will be called, we have output.csv file is populated from a web link, which is dummy.json.com/product, and populated all the information there. The output.cv has header and all the data imported. Then we have to go to read data from CSV file. Of course, we have CSV data equal read CSV data, and we pass the parameter output.csv, which is the created one here. The code calls the read CSV data function to read the data back to the CSV file and store it in the CSV data variable. So CSV data variable now have all content from output.csv. Then we make a condition if CSV data and start looping in the row.csv. So inside the second, the code starts a loop to iterate over each row in CSV data list of dictionary. The email, for example, here I set my email rabikahale@hotmail.com. The subject is row title. Title is a field populated from dummy.json.com/product. So if you browse dummy.json.com/product, you will have product as a root, and you have a field called title. Of course, it is just a demo or just a dummy data. Maybe you can use it in a real case where you have a user's email, and then you can populate using JSON and send email for them. Of course, the body, I said, dear user, I hope a message find you well. Please find the attached blah, blah, blah. And now we'll have to use the send email function, which will pass parameter subject, body, and email. So the final result will be like that. Will be the import will be at the same part here. The first function is get data from API, and we passed, as we say, API URL. The second one is save data to CSV, and we pass two parameter data and CSV file name. And the third one is the read CSV data, and we pass the CSV file name. Send email is a function we will have to send three parameters, subject, body, and two email. And as I prefer now, and of course, lastly, we use this JSON. I will show you this JSON. What is it? Is about a product tag here, and we'll have all this for one row. So it's about one root tag, and there is child. There is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I use it here to make it a for loop and to send email to Rebecca Hale for the number of rows in this dummy JSON data. The dummy JSON data will be, let's say, a collection of users or collection of anything, and you make it automated and send it by email. Now we will run the code. I click on play. If you see now the email successfully to RebeccaHale@hotmail.com, and it show around 10 or 15, I don't know. It show a number of emails because they are looping. All the data will be retrieved here. Now we are at the end. I would like to wrap up a tutorial I recently shared on the YouTube channel, Code by Rack. The tutorial covered Python code to fetch data from a web API, populate it into a CSV file, loop through CSV data, and send in emails. If you found the tutorial helpful and wish to stay updated with more content, please consider subscribing to my channel. Feel free to ask any questions you may have, and I will be glad to assist you. Thank you.